Okay, here we are with the Arturia MicroFreak and loaded samples. I took these samples and I loaded them into the MIDI control center and loaded them onto the MicroFreak. I'm still amazed. I don't know, maybe you know how much memory exactly exists on the MicroFreak. I don't, but I'm amazed that any does it all. I mean, and I suspect there's probably more on this than there was on the sampler that I used to compose music for a decade. Anyway, it's amazing that they started this off as this weird little synthesizer, and it has these digital capabilities that astound me, probably because I'm extremely old. Anyway, so I have taken these sounds that I described in the previous video, and I've used the MIDI control center to transfer them onto the MicroFreak. And so we're about to hear some, I will say, vintage synthesizer sounds that go back to more than a decade before I was born, which is very old. Okay, so let's go into just like an initialized, an empty preset, and then we'll go up to type, and we will choose sample. Now, what we need to do now is press Shift and choose again, and select a waveform that is not the next video I'm going to do. Here we are on RCA Mark II. And this one doesn't have a number. This is the first one. And these first few are kind of different octaves of the same sound. So we'll just go with this first sound. We'll skip over the next ones. But anyway, here's what it sounds like. That's not what I remember it sounding like, but okay. So this is the sample as it just is, without any sort of looping or anything. And this is the RCA Mark II, an actual timbre from it. And in the tradition of this incredible application of sampling to this weird little synthesizer, it sounds really good across the octaves. Of course, because there is a variation, a time-based variation in this particular sound, as you play higher, that variation is going to speed up, and as you play lower, it's going to slow down. Keep in mind that there are variations and aspects of the timbre of the sound that you could not make with this synthesizer because of a number of things. Number one, the way that the RCA Mark II recorded sound. Then the flaws and imperfections that have gone from the lacquer disc cutting part of the RCA Mark II, and then to however it was recorded to become part of this demo disc, which is a record. So you have that, you have a record adding distortion and variation, the various speeds in the record player. And then, who knows how this was sampled directly or recorded from the record. So there's a whole bunch of layers of sound here, and some of them actually are the RCA Mark II, and some of them are the transfer across various media. But in any case, it is a unique sound that you're not going to get anywhere else, and it's cool to know that it is this sound that was made so many decades ago by a machine that was the first machine to hold the name synthesizer. So of course we can mess with the start. And of course the length. I like to have this on polyphonic. Let's hear it down low. pi is probably going to be pretty obnoxious. Still, it's a very nice timbre. And we can always add a loop if we want to. I have not found a great loop point there, but anyway, these are great timbres, and of course, if we'd like, we can always add. Oh, I had reverb on the whole time. I didn't. Okay, I'm insane. Let's hear it with some reverb. With the authentic spring reverb, so we're not just talking some digital thing, we're actually an analog reverb sound happening here. So even that ridiculous loop that I think is largely a failure on my part, it sounds fantastic. So adding just effects, it's not like I'm typically, obsessed with making sure that everything sounds analog. It doesn't need to sound analog when you're dealing with samples. But, the original timbre is there. It doesn't really matter that it is a digital representation of that timbre, because that timbre in itself is infused with all of the variances that we look for in analog sound. So it is there. The behavior, of course, is slightly different, but, doing something like this gives you a little more realism. Let's hear some delay. Absolutely wonderful.